Today I'm joined by Krystel, who works at the intersection of AI deployment, customer success, and real world adoption. Krystel helps teams move AI from an idea into everyday work, designing intelligent workflows, supporting behavior change, and making sure technology actually delivers value once it meets people, processes, and reality. In this conversation, we'll explore what it really happens when teams adopt AI, where breaks down, and how clarity and smart boundaries make the difference between hype and impact. Welcome, Krystel, to Human X Intelligent.
Thank you so much for having me. Really excited for this conversation.
I would like to go ahead and ask you a simple question. When AI actually works well inside of a team, what changes first? Is it tools, behavior, or mindset?
Yeah, great question. I feel that when an AI solution is implemented inside a team or an enterprise or a company and works and produces like useful outputs, I feel that the first thing that you see happening is a change of behavior. And the tool is producing like a useful output, and you are going to see like teams stopping spending time on things like first drafts, initial research, formatting, stuff like that, because they are going to see that I can use this AI output and apply my expertise to refine, to validate, to really use my mental brain and my mental capacity where it needed and not like doing small things. So the first thing that you are going to see is like behavior changes. And then when people really realize, okay, I can use AI to produce like those first initial drafts as an example, you are going to see the mindset changes after that, because people are going to shift from should I do this myself? Should I produce like those things myself? To a scenario where they are going to think of, should I delegate this to AI agent, right? Because they already saw the output that the AI agent or the AI solution produced before. So I would say that the first thing that changes is like the behavior, like the way that people work and the way that people are going to produce things and create things. And when they see the real results that produces in their lives as they work, they are going to change their mindset and the way they look at their jobs and even tasks on a daily basis.
Very nice. So I found it very interesting how you made the connection between behavior changes, which equals the mentality change, because
Mhm.
they visually see the change happening, right? And their lives becoming easier. So how do you think that this applies to one of the concepts that you've always described, which is giving people superpowers? What does that look in practice and be beyond the hype?
Yeah, I need to make a disclaimer before I answer your
Yeah.
question. I'm a very tech optimistic. I truly believe that technology can help improve society and, in consequence, improve ourselves as
Hmm.
professionals and individuals. So I truly believe that we can use technology to become better humans. And what better way to become better humans than to give ourselves superpowers, right? To really
Hmm.
improve the way that we do things. And the way that I look at AI right now at the stage that we are as right now at the start of 2026 is we can learn and we can do things on unfamiliar domains that was like impossible a couple years ago or even like a couple months ago. An
Hmm.
example like very common right now is someone that is non-technical, they can build
Hmm.
like functional prototypes. They can build, even if they don't know how to write or even read code, they can build things, right? Or even like a writer, they can research complex topics in minutes versus hours. You also see in enterprises, individual contributors, ICs, right, doing work that previously required a full team and hire a bunch of people to do those works. So when you use like AI on that scale, you are really giving people superpowers. And in my opinion, it's not about having AI doing the full work. It's not about having AI doing everything. It's really about humans being able to operate with confidence in areas where previously they needed to hire specialists, they needed to spend weeks, months, or even years learning that domain. Right now, they can really like move forward on those domains and areas super fast and feel that when you learn something or you produce like something that you know that you don't know how that happened, but it's like feels like magic, you feel like a superhuman, right? When you produce like something that that last year or 2 years ago was impossible to do. And I see that like on non-technical teams. I think that is like where you see that effect, right? When I
Mm-hmm.
go to hackathons here in San Francisco and you see
Mm-hmm.
people that they don't know what is like JavaScript or like Node.js. They don't know anything about coding, but they are able to build an app that works, that produces like something. You can see that in people's face that, my, I
Mm-hmm.
did that. It's like feels
Mm-hmm.
great to be able to do those things. So I feel that we are on that moment where people can realize that technology can really help them become better and do more things and better things.
Yeah. How do you see the connection between what we are learning and building right now becoming our day to day life and not needing extra work from other people that know exactly from the area, if that makes sense? Because right now, for example, Claude is the best one right now in the market for code, in my
Mhm.
opinion, and so on. How does these tools work in the long term? Because right now, if you have this tool, if you use this tool, it's great. They create the MVP. We have
Mhm.
something to actually use for VC meetings. But when it comes to scalability and also growth of the application, how do you see that evolving? Because how can this superpower evolve?
No, great question. I feel that we are not on a point yet of the technology where AI by itself can produce like something that is scalable. Talking about code specifically, vibe coding, like the call vibe coding, right? It's amazing to build everything you said, right? Building prototypes, building MVPs,
Yeah.
validate like ideas, even for product managers. And I know that it's something that you talk a lot, right? About the fact that you are like designing a project and you need to build like a product. It helps you conceptualize everything that you have in your mind really, really fast and accelerate all that process. But in order to build like something that is really like in the market, in the app store, that is like downloaded by millions of people, you need to have knowledge of coding, on
Mm-hmm.
cybersecurity, on defense, on AI policy. It's a lot of like small expertise that you are going to need to add to the product
Mm-hmm.
when you validate. But I feel that you can get there so fast right now
Mm-hmm.
compared to like before. Even to build an MVP, you would need an engineer, right? You would
Mm-hmm.
need someone to code
Mm-hmm.
that MVP. Even if you were like great on product prototyping and imagining the product, you would need to code it. And right now, I feel that we can get to the point faster,
Mm-hmm.
but people need to understand that
Mm-hmm.
expertise is still needed. So something that I think a lot is about trust, and you mentioned that on my intro, right? And it's something that I write and think a
Yeah.
lot. And I really feel that where trust breaks when we think about vibe, even
Mm-hmm.
vibe coding, is when you see people moving forward without verifying the outputs that the AI give them in areas where they lack expertise, right? When you think about companies and enterprise, you are going to get up to a point where you are going to have the snowball effect, right? So if one team is using AI to produce an output and they don't have the expertise to validate
Yeah.
or verify the output, and that output is reused by another team to produce another thing, you can get, and I'm not saying that there is like everything is going to have that problem, right? But you can get to a situation where the final result that everything produces is going to be incorrect, or it's going to have like a safety failure or something that is going to impact the deployment and the production. So verifying is very important. Like, in my opinion, trust breaks when the human abdicates the responsibility rather than using AI as a thinking partner, right? AI, again, is really helping us, but it's not like replacing us. It's not here to replace our judgments. It's very similar to anything you do without AI that you need to verify. You need to verify with an expert. AI is the same thing. You can like take the output bluntly and like, oh yes, it's 100% correct, right? I'm going to run with this.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's very important that we focus on how we are building our teams around that, around what you said. How can we have the experts on where we need versus how,
Mhm.
where can I do it alone to make it faster? Since we talk about teams and we talk about trust, I think it's also so important based on your expertise and your experience. What do you think? And also based on what we discussed previously, what you shared on tasks, what is the difference between delegating tasks to AI versus delegating decisions? And where do you see teams getting this wrong?
Yeah, great question. So when I think about tasks, I really think about delegating to AI everything that can be verifiable immediately. So things like write this email, format this data, draft this section, right?
Uh-huh.
Those things are a direct output. And it's like, okay, the
Uh-huh.
output, even if it's not like 100% aligned on the way that I would write it, the output and the result is still there. Like it's accurate. Let's do it. Like that is a task. When I think about decisions, is everything that it's like a judgment call that requires context, values, trade-offs, internal policies, change management. It's a lot of like highlights more soft skills than hard skills, right? At the end of the day, you
Uh-huh.
really need to have like it's a judgment call. So I feel that where teams fail is when they start asking LLMs things like, should we do this? Should we
Uh-huh.
decide that? Like those type of questions and taking those answers at face value, right? Like, oh
Uh-huh.
yes, the AI told me that I should hire this person or I should fire this person, right? Like when they started doing that, it's where teams fail. So
Uh-huh.
usually what I tell teams is you can still use AI to help brainstorm and to give you like other perspectives. I'm not saying not
Uh-huh.
don't ask AI or LLMs to those questions. What I'm saying is use AI to map options, implications, considerations instead of like, should we hire this person based on these criterias? This person would work with this team. What do you think? What would be the competence or the skills that this person would bring to the team? Like ask those type of questions on a more granular way. And based on that, you can like even like map those options and ask like different LLMs to get like different perspectives. But don't take that answer as face value. Like get that, map the options, the implications of everything, considerations, then you make the decision, right? So when it's a decision, you can use it to analyze more piece of context that sometimes due to the lack of time on our days, it's hard to do, right? You can like, for example, for hiring processes, you can upload all the meetings and the interviews that you had with that person. You can upload like performance reviews of the teams, of the peoples that that person would work with. You can upload like a lot of context about the work that you expect that person to do. And you can ask the LLM to combine all those criterias and those data points to help you map the decision. But again, it's a human decision. It's a judgment call. And the LLM, even with all the MCPs, with all the connectors that we now
Uh-huh.
have, specifically on Claude, right, on Anthropic,
Uh-huh.
you can connect a lot of data points. Even with all of
Uh-huh.
that, most of our work when we work with teams and people happen outside a computer, outside something
Uh-huh.
that you are recording. So when it's a decision, use it to help you, not to make the
Yeah.
decision for you.
I read something that I never forgot, which is it should be used to help us think, not to think from for us. I love the expression judgment call. I think it's very impactful, and it makes us say that yeah, you're judging the what you're doing. So you're taking consideration, you need to pay attention in order to have something that actually translate something for the human and not for the machine,
Yeah.
because it wouldn't work in any other way. Also, I think something that you talked a little bit about this, and I also think it's important to mention because specifically to judgment call, it comes also with moving fast. What
Mm.
is like the quick versus ship today, ship tomorrow? What is the
Yeah.
difference, But what do you think are like the signals that can tell a team if a team is moving fast or too fast before the problem or problems appear?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that is an amazing question. One of the things that I always identify when I have that feeling of like when I'm working with a company or a customer on an AI deployment, and I have that feeling that we are moving too fast, that people are not ready. One of the
Yeah.
questions that I ask is people to ask the person to explain
Mm-hmm.
why the AI gave them a
Mm,
particular output. Like,
yeah.
yes, the AI produced like this action. Why? If
Yeah.
the person can't explain why, like that means they don't know the guardrails that we implemented, the rules, the
Mm-hmm.
process, the workflow. They don't understand the problem that
Mm-hmm.
we are solving. So that is usually like,
Mm-hmm.
if you can't explain like why and how we got here,
Mm-hmm.
we may have a disconnect about
Yeah.
like training or upskilling internally on the team to understand what we did and what we
Mm-hmm.
deployed. But then even after that, like related with verification, right? And it's like, as you can see, it's like something that I'm like battling right now with a lot of companies is when you see teams using AI for things that no one on the team can verify. Be very careful
Mhm.
with that. Again, you can use AI to learn something that you don't know. I do that all the time. I'm learning all the time.
Mhm.
But if I'm using that output to produce like something for my work, and I know that that task is going to impact another person on another department, I need to make sure that information it can be verified somewhere. And you can use another AI to verify the other output, but then like if it's something related, I don't know, with financial reporting or privacy or policy, you need to be very careful because again, it's a lot about context. And you need to make sure that if you are implementing something in scale, that someone in the company can verify that output. So that is very, very important. If we don't have that, maybe we are moving too fast on the AI solution that we are trying to implement. And I would say that last thing is when we see outputs get used without human fingerprints on them. We talked
Mhm.
enough before this episode about human in the loop. It's something that
Mhm.
for me, when I think about AI solutions in scale in enterprise companies, it's very important to have human in the loop across the workflow, across the solution, not only related with the verification process, having someone that owns an output that can verify that output, but also like, even if it's like when you hire someone to your team, you don't expect that person to be all by themselves like at the end of like 2 days. You are going to have someone from your team mentoring that person for a couple weeks or even a couple months depending on the role. So you need to think about AI or an AI solution in the same way. You need to have like someone that is like owning that output, that is refining the guardrails and the rules that you are implementing. So when I
Mhm.
see like AI solutions being implemented without anyone owning anything, I'm like, this company is implementing
Mhm.
AI only for the sake of having AI. So that is usually a red flag for me.
Yeah, you touched the nail completely. I was going to say ownership. We need to think about ownership, but
Yeah.
at the end, you said it. No, but it's true, and it's I think it's something that it's becoming increasingly difficult for teams to understand what is ownership because it's not the same anymore, and what should the AI be automating versus what it should be controlled, what it should be just analyzing and giving input, and so on. Like besides having AI as a feature, AI as a tool, wherever it is, let's back up a little bit, like you were saying, into the ownership side and the verification to verify the output. So,
Yeah.
who is owning, like you're saying, each part of the verification points? But that also comes hand in hand with the people in the teams that are using AI daily, but are creating some kind of fear and
Mm.
misconception, right? What do you think, or what kinds of fear and misconceptions tend to show up first when teams start using AI daily?
I think like the first one, and that is big talking point right now is, oh, it's going to replace me, right? So if it's already like doing these reports, analyzing this data as good as I do, or even better, oh, it's going to replace me. So that is like the first wave of fear and
Mhm,
misconception. And I say that as a misconception, and it's a fear, but it's also a misconception because I'm a true believer of like upskilling the people. The work model is going to change, is already changing, but it's
mhm,
going to change even more in the next few years. The more and more companies implement AI and bring AI solutions inside their processes and workflows. And yes, like a lot of the tasks that people do are going to be replaced with AI. But at the end of the day, people can be empowered to do more. Like I don't believe that anyone hires someone for them only to write emails, right? When you do an interview process, you are analyzing the fact that they can think, they can treat the customer well, they can support the customer,
mhm,
they can maybe like connect technical points internally on the company and help those people. Like you are analyzing the different skills, but at the end of the day, when someone joins a team, they are going to do like very boring tasks. So now it's the moment for companies to really rethink on the why did I hire this person? What are like their competence and the skills and their talents? And let's make sure that those skills and talents are really highlighted and remove like
mhm,
all the other things that they spend their days doing with AI. So I feel that that is the first fear that people are having right now. And the second one is when you hear people saying, I don't know the right way to use it, right? It's like, oh yes, at my company we have, I don't know, Copilot, we have a ChatGPT a Pro for our teams. We see people are using Claude, but I have no idea how the right way to use it. And when they hear like podcasts like yours and other content say, oh, yes, but don't use this because it can be dangerous to upload contents from your company. Don't use that.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like it's a big fear. And I think we are
Yeah.
entering a moment where a lot of companies need to be like educational companies. They really need to understand how can we train our teams to be better, to use AI in a way that not only aligns with the internal policies of the company, but also in a way that really help them in individual perspective to improve their work. It's going to be like the first tier of companies to be trained with that mindset of what are the best practices. We don't need all the AI tools in the company. That is another thing that I see a lot of companies like they're
Mm,
adopting everything. Like, calm down. You
mm,
don't need like all the LLMs. You don't need all the tools available. You need the ones that solve really your problems and the
mhm,
things that you are trying to create.
mhm,
So you're going to have those leadership be trained with that in order to train the rest of the companies. Very similar to what happened with like when we had the cloud a couple years ago, right?
mhm,
Where people started working in the cloud, having those
mhm,
principles. We are going to enter a moment where you are going to need that upskilling and almost like
mhm,
reskilling inside the companies. But yeah,
mhm,
people fear looking incompetent while
mhm.
learning in front of others, and they need to combat that, because now AI,
Yeah.
you can use like your LLM to learn by yourself. You don't need like
Mhm.
to learn in front of
Yeah.
everyone. But when talking with companies and enterprises and teams, the enterprise needs to own that education cycle they need to implement internally.
Yeah, something that's happening here in Portugal, companies are creating ambassadors. So people
Mm,
from the company are becoming AI ambassadors and they are helping the company to create processes, operations that met different teams' goals and
mhm.
expectations and also strengths. So they are focusing, they know the strengths and they know the weaknesses of each team. So how can they implement artificial intelligence on the weak part to develop more and more these teams to gain more for each of them. Another thing that you said was, and I thought it was very interesting, was the errors part. So it's very difficult sometimes to be in the team and having someone with you that might not reply the way you expected when you do a mistake and you're learning and can actually backlash to you and have a problem. So now you have the opportunity also to use artificial intelligence for that. You talk about like with AI through human communication principles. It's something that you talk about a lot. So I think I'm very curious to know what does that actually mean in practice to have the communication with AI through human
Yeah.
communication principles.
And it's funny that you are asking this question, because I studied journalism in college. And when I started working in tech, I always thought that, oh, I'm not going to use like anything that I learned in college, right? Because I'm working on a completely
Yeah.
different industry. And now with LLMs and prompting, and 2 years ago, I was like really working on implementation on like prompting engineering on a startup where I was working at. And I was like doing a lot of prompt engineering and a lot of machine learning. And I remember that I was like, wait, like like the language principles and the communication principles that we already use for humans, it's not as different as the principles that you want to embed it in your LLM, and the way that you talk, and that, in my opinion, you should like prioritize talking with an LLM or an AI. So for me, like the core idea is like a person already knows how to brief
Mm-hmm.
someone, how to give feedback, how to ask for revisions. Those are skills that a good professional in any team should already have as a human, right? So apply
Mm-hmm.
the same logic when you are using an LLM and an AI. So to be practical, I can think like, be specific when you are like asking an LLM, or you are using an AI agent like on rules and guardrails, and you are thinking of a AI solution. Be very specific, almost like when you would work with a junior colleague when you are mentoring a
Mm-hmm.
new hire or someone that just got out college. You need to be specific because they don't have the same
Mm-hmm.
references as you have. They don't have the same context. So be very specific. Don't drop like buzzwords without explaining what those buzzwords mean. Provide context. For me, context is very, very, very important. You can't
Mm-hmm.
expect, similar to a person, you can't expect the person to know things if you didn't give like the context, right? You can't expect a person that you just hired to know what is the SOP for the support if they didn't open the document with the SOP, and maybe they don't have like any idea of what the type of support that the company does, right? So provide context, like almost you are doing a project briefing. The more information, like over communication when you are training something, a person or an AI, is very important. And iterate, right? Very similar to a person, like the person is going to make mistakes, but sometimes it's not like a mistake. It's like only a different way to do things, right? So maybe the first reporting that a junior hire is going to make, it's still going to be accurate, but it's not going to follow maybe the right formatting. It's not going to be following the right best practices on language, like stuff like that, even if the result may be accurate. So you need to iterate. You need to say, oh, okay, actually the result is correct. Like the data points you use are good, but we need to change the formatting. We need to work on the language. We need to work on the best practices. So very similar to what you do as a good mentor and a good hire manager in the team on iteration. It's the same thing with LLM. So you can't expect, even if you hire the best AI deployment manager in the world, the best AI agency in the world, you can't expect that the AI solution that you're implementing is going to have the perfect output in the first day. It's an iteration process. You need to grab that and work on that. And also something about prompting, because it's very connected with the communication aspect. There's no magic prompts. I know that it's very trendy on LinkedIn. Reply this to get this prompt, like,
Yeah.
oh, prompt libraries. Having good references, like the way to think of writing is good. And I also read like a lot of like prompts that people do, but that helps me like think better on the way that I want to communicate with my LLMs and my agents. But there's not like magic prompts out there. It's like it's all about structured thinking. So if you know what you are asking, if you have like a proper thinking of, okay, what is my goal, what is the problem that I'm trying to solve? So it's not only about the prompt. And now the LLMs are so smart that it doesn't matter
Mhm.
if, like, I remember like 2 years ago, the best practice was to start by saying
Ah,
act as a copywriter, right? Like that was like the best practice. It seems like a long time ago, but that was like the best practice on
yeah,
LLMs a couple of years ago, or even months ago.
yeah.
I don't even know. Now you don't need those type of things. So to understand what you're saying, sometimes I'm like mix different languages on the same prompt. They are going to get there. It
Yeah, oh,
doesn't
yeah.
matter. So it's not about only the prompt. It's really about the thinking that you have behind the prompting.
Based on your experience, can you share any real use case where clarity and not technology made the difference?
I got a situation like that with a customer last year where we really improved on the prompting, but also on the requirements that another team was
Mm,
using. So the practical use case was connected to what I was talking about before, when a team
mm,
needs to use the output of another agent that was from another
mm,
team. So here was like sales to customer success. And it's, if we have any customer success managers listening to the podcast, they know the struggle that sometimes sales end off hard, because as a CSM, you are going to need some information from the customer during the sales
mhm,
processes, that even if you have the best templates, the best way to create context from transcripts and meeting notes, sometimes a lot of the things that happen are really human from the sales rep, right? And unless you have all the time in the world to jump on calls every single time with the sales team, it's really hard to get those outputs and actually these inputs for your work when the sales process is closed. We were working on an agent for the sales team to automate like a bunch of things, from the go-to-market strategy to fill out the CRM, like all those type of things. And then when the customer signed the contract, that would produce like a report of all the pain points analyzed, connected to the product, how the product would solve those pain points, what would they expect timeline, the stakeholders, like a full report of the sales process and the customer. And the customer success manager that would be assigned to that account would get that report. But the first thing that the customer success was telling us was, oh yes, this is an amazing report, but where is the human part here? Like, this is like things that I could get if I read, if I go watch like the meetings. I need
mhm,
the feeling of like the sales rep, why they didn't drop the customer on the first call. What was the feeling from the sales rep of moving forward with the lead process? It was only like about the ICP, or was like something else. So what we built was really like a connection from the sales rep Slack channel, where like sales rep talk all the time about their customers on Slack, like oh, I like them. They are smart. I think that we can
Yeah.
upsell them in the future. And those are messages, right? Those are not things they say in meetings, but they write those things on their messaging app.
Yeah.
That was like Slack. So we were like, oh, okay, actually, the piece that you are missing is the communication part from the sales rep
Mhm.
and the head of sales. So we built like an integration with Slack to connect like those Slack channels with the report that was already previously built by the AI agents from the sales team. And we created like a custom report for the customer success team. So something that I always tell the companies that I work with is like those examples are amazing. Sometimes I share those examples and I get like messages of like, oh, Krystel, I want that. I'm like, I'm happy to build it. But first, even before building that, we need to have clarity on the problem that you are solving because we
Mhm.
only got to that a specific solution because a team was actually seeing
Mhm.
something useful from the report that was already produced, but it was missing a piece. So it was something very custom and very specific
Mhm.
to that person. It's like a very specific pain point. So
Mhm.
it's not about the tools itself. It's really about having clarity of what is the piece that I'm missing?
Mhm.
What is like the insight that I'm missing? So right now, I truly believe that we have all the tools and all the technology that we need to build like any ideal scenario that we want, right? So what we are missing is clarity. Is like stop like looking at all
Mhm.
the NANs, like amazing workflows that you have on your LinkedIn and all the promptings and all of that. Stop and think. It's not because your competitor is doing or doing something that you think that is very sexy and
Mhm.
I want that.
Mhm.
Think about the problems that you are trying to solve internally. Because if you bring AI solutions to be patches to things, it's
Yeah.
actually going to magnify the issues that you have. It's not going to solve
Yeah.
anything.
For sure, 100%. And there's something that I always like to say that if you see a feature done 100% with AI versus a feature done with humans in the loop, you can see that it
Yeah.
was an AI.
Like you need to have some thinking. You need to spend
Mhm.
some time thinking about the problem, right? So that is like my friction point of having companies and as individuals I'm always like testing a bunch of things. So mea culpa, I'm like the one
Mhm.
that like I don't know like every single tool to test it, but when I'm working with companies, we are talking about scale, we are talking about cross-functional
Mhm.
work, we are talking about impact. So you need
Mhm.
to have humans thinking about the
Mhm.
problem because we all know that most companies, even like perfect tech startup companies, they have all the context disconnected internally. It's really I never saw even like small startups here in Silicon Valley to have like a perfect connected digital internal process. Actually, when you start as a startup, you don't have processes at all. You
Yeah.
only want to grow and build a
What is
product.
that?
Exactly. So, and then you start growing and like building the
Yeah.
process is the last thing in your list because you need to have money, you need to go to VCs,
Yeah.
you need to continue to have clients and improve your product.
Mhm.
And you get to a point where, yes, you can have a lot of AI, a lot of automation, a lot of digital processes and workflows, but you still have like structural problems and foundational problems. And
Yeah.
that's normal. I'm not saying that it's like,
Mhm.
that is like a problem. It's a problem when it becomes a problem, right? When it becomes a problem, when you have like all that context, all those data points, all those tools, all those people
Mhm.
involved, you need to have that context. Um, that that picture it needs to be built by a human that really understands and can connect all
Yeah.
those data points and build that big picture at the end of the day. Last week I was having a conversation, we were talking about, I even wrote a post on LinkedIn about that I
Mhm.
truly believe that the companies that are going to be successful in the short term, I'm not like talking years, I'm like talking like months, the companies that are going to be successful are going to be the ones that said this is made by humans.
Mhm.
And we are moving to from a moment where like, well, I want to buy this company because it's 100% done by AI, to a moment where
Mhm.
actually I'm missing like the human
Mhm.
critical thinking, the human judgment, the human touch here. So you are like starting seeing here and there, like here in the Bay Area, some startups like doing made by humans, made by a human team, and even like
Mhm.
OpenAI is like open is they are like in talks in building a social media that is only for
Yeah.
humans. They are going to block all the bots. So you are moving to,
Yeah.
you have the both extremes, right? You have like the mode bot moment where you have social medias on only for AI. But on the other end, you also have like this desire of human connection and the need of human like critical thinking that is still our
Mhm.
differential. Our differential is not going to be how fast we do a task, how good we are going to build like a report, writing an email,
Mm-hmm.
analyzing financial data. It's not going to be for that, because that the AI can do a better job than we can. It's only going to be about thinking. And
Mm-hmm.
people need to start analyzing patterns, working on the way they think, analyze things. And if they do that, they shouldn't be concerned about don't have a job or losing their jobs in the future.
Yeah, for sure. And before we say goodbye, I would like to ask you two questions. And starting with something that I think is very important for the listeners, specifically to leaders. So, if there's one principle that you see that leaders should keep in mind when adopting AI in teams, what is it?
AI doesn't replace judgment. That is
Mm-hmm.
the main thing that I would love, yeah, leaders
Yeah.
and managers to have almost like the mantra, right? Use AI to help you, not to replace the judgment.
Yeah. What's the boundary you believe teams should never cross when working with artificial intelligence?
That is a tough question because I don't believe in
Yeah.
boundaries in technology. I truly believe that we should always push the boundaries. So I truly don't believe on like boundaries. I feel that we need to create like safe space for people to
Mm-hmm.
experiment and testing and yeah, test everything they want. When we are talking about companies, I think a big part is like safety. As individuals, we can test like all the open sources, AI agents that connect with everything. It's our personal data, so it's personal responsibility. But when you are thinking about teams and companies, I would say think about the safety because you don't want to put your company reputation in the line. But otherwise, thinking about AI specifically and AI scenarios, I don't believe in boundaries. Like something that I sometimes I see like companies, and when I do speakings and talks here in Silicon Valley for groups coming here, they'll say our company blocked this model, or oh my company doesn't allow me to use this tool or this LLM. For me, it's always a friction if the company doesn't trust people that they want to. Like if the person wants to use Gemini over ChatGPT, it's because they are getting a better output from Gemini for their tasks or for their jobs. So it's not about like the company to decide what I should use. If they need to trust that I'm trying to be a better professional and do a better job at the end of the day.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing and for being here. I guess before we say goodbye, is there anything you'd like to say? Anything you'd like to share? Anything at all? Now it's the moment.
Oh, thank you. If like people really want to chat about like building workflows, building AI solutions for teams that really drive adoption and solve problems, they can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I have my DMs open, always open to a good conversation. So, yeah, reach out and let's help companies better adopt AI and people to gain more superpowers at the end of the day. So that is my goal.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.